please welcome your host, Kim Crable.
Hello, everyone. Well, our past shapes our future in profound ways, whether we realize it or not. But those influences don't always have to be negative, do they? We hear this hope all the time, and from many sources, even from the Bible, where we read that all things can work together for our good. But does this promise pertain to everyone, even you and me? And with everything, those things known and those things yet to be disclosed from the secrets of our heart? Well, hello and welcome back to Coffee. I'm so glad you're here. Audience, you look beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me. And for those at home, we're so happy that you're finding this as your place that you love to visit. Thanks for your emails, your comments. We love hearing from you. Thanks for just being here. Well, if you have questions about the possibility and the potential held in your past, then my friends, I am thrilled to say today the truth you are about to hear is just for you. I can say this because Jason VanRuler, a licensed therapist and one of the most sought-after experts on relationships, trauma, and personal transformation, is here today. He is here to share with vulnerability and authenticity his wisdom and insights from his book, Get Past Your Past, how to put the past behind you and step into the life and relationships you're called to. Oh my goodness, call your friends. No one wants to miss today's show. And as soon as we get back, Jason will be in the house.
Kim Crable knows all about hidden shame and regret. From the time she experienced a life-altering trauma at age 4, Kim became an expert in hiding her hurt and confusion. In her transparent story, Burdens to Blessings, Kim invites you along the journey from shame and sadness towards healing and hope. Simply go to www.kimcrable.org. Discover the confidence and courage to be you again, and discover the power of your story.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Let's give a warm coffee welcome to Jason VanRuler. Hey!
So nice.
Thank you. Come on in. Have a seat right here. Well, thank you so much for joining us for coffee.
I'm thrilled to be here. I've been so looking forward to this.
I want you to know that out of thousands of followers, I reached out to you and said, will you come? And you just automatically said yes. I was shocked and surprised and honored, and just thank you so much.
Of course.
I love having you here, and I want you to know I'm prepared.
Okay.
I mean, I'm ready.
I expect that.
Are you ready?
I expect you to be prepared.
Because
yes.
I have a few questions for you.
Okay.
Just,
that looks like more than a few. Okay. That looks like more than a few. Yes. I will do my best. I will do my best.
How excited I am.
Yes.
I, as a counselor, love the passion you have about seeing people healed from their past. The book that you have here that everyone has to get past your past. Let's just start there. Why this title?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's personal for me, but I think it's also what I try to help clients do is just, I think sometimes we carry our past with us, just like this anchor, and it just keeps us really stuck. And so just that idea that we could get past it. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes we don't even realize we could. It's just not even an option on our mind that we could actually get past it.
Absolutely. I see that a lot. I think that we start to think, well, this is just me. Mm-hmm. This is just who I am. This is the way it's always going to be. When that happens, what is something that we should think? What is a truth that we could ponder that could move us forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I would ask is just, do you feel God called you to this? Mm-hmm. And so if you're feeling stuck and you feel like there's just nothing else out there for you, do you feel like this is where God's called you to be?
Yes.
And I think a lot of people would say in that space, no, I don't, but I also don't know what to do.
That's it. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I know where I want to go, and that's where I lived for so many years. It's like I knew where I wanted to go, but I didn't know how to get there, and I didn't even know if it was possible anymore because of the hurts that I had buried in my heart that no one could see, but I knew was there. I wasn't sure if I could trust people. I didn't know if it would be an overburden to people. So I just kept it inside. There are a lot of people like that today. Talk about, don't you think?
Yeah, I think most people are like that today. And the reason, I mean, social media plays a role. We share all the best parts, not the worst parts. Community revolves around what we've done, not what's happened. And so I think for a lot of people, they feel really siloed and just stuck in their pain.
Yes.
And they feel like they can't tell anyone. Because if they told somebody, then they'd have a problem. And so the thing is like we're in a community and culture right now where we're really problem focused,
Yes.
but we're not solution focused. So we're really good at talking about what's wrong, but not what to do about it. And so I think for a lot of people, they say, well, I'll just not talk about it.
Yes.
It'd be easier not to say anything.
Yes. And so that's where that hiding comes in. And is it not true that shame needs one thing to survive, and that's secrecy? And we're walking around with all these secrets. But to someone that's in the audience or someone that's listening at home, how do you find, I mean, I know how I did it because God was saying to me, I remember, Jason, for so many years, you know, I was hiding from the age of 4. But once I had my children, I felt like God said, you know, you can hide, you can pretend with the world all day long, but you can't pretend at home. Healing has to take place. So is there a catalyst in most of our lives that causes us to say, something has to give, I have to do something?
Yeah, I think there's that moment, because there almost has to be, and that moment has to be so powerful to kind of get us out of being stuck. You know, it's like if you ever got in your car stuck and you kind of go back and forth and back and forth, you need this thing to kind of push you over.
Yes.
And sometimes it's a life event like marriage or kids, or sometimes it's just getting so fed up with being stuck. You just say, right now I'm going to do it different. Other times it's just someone showing you that it's possible is actually the catalyst that I'm sure you've gotten to see with people too, which is one of the brilliant parts of my job, is getting to tell somebody, hey, it could get better.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, one of the things that I absolutely love about what you do and how you do it is your vulnerability and your authenticity. How important is that to you, and what is that why you have thousands of people following you? Do you think that, how important is authenticity and vulnerability when we're talking to others?
Yeah, I mean, it's the most important thing, right? That's actually what connection is all about. And I think in my job, working with people through hard things, if you've been hurt before, you want to know you can trust somebody. And who do you trust? You trust people who are vulnerable and authentic. And so for me, it just feels like if I'm not willing to share my stuff, how could I ask you to share yours? And so that's kind of what I've led with. Now, I will say, I mean, vulnerability is just as hard for me as it is anybody else, right? So, I mean, there's moments there. But I think for me, it was just, if I'm going to teach people about this, I kind of have this saying when I do marriage therapy, but it's you first.
Yes.
And so I thought me first, right? So I'm going to tell you to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it first.
Yes. To me, that just seems to be, you know, I love the term safe places, you know, that we can provide a safe place for other people. And to me, my safe place first came when someone was vulnerable with me. Because the world can look perfect, and the world can look like you're the only one that has any issues, right? And so it's really hard to break past that barrier to say, the moment that someone spoke into my life, a real authentic hurt and pain that God had gotten her through, I mean, like, I was rejoicing. Not that her pain, but it's like, oh, there's hope for me.
Right.
That's the secret,
That's
isn't
how we
it?
hear it. Yeah.
Sharing the hope.
Yeah, because I mean, I do workshops and events, and inevitably we get to the point of sharing, and someone says, well, I'm going to share something, but I'm sure no one's ever heard it.
Yes.
And I want to tell my story, and I've had this struggle, right? And so they share the struggle, and they're always shocked to learn 10 people in the audience go, well, me too.
Yes.
And so I'm so grateful for the people who are willing to do that and let people have an on-ramp to healing. Because if they don't do it, a lot of times it's hard for people to be that first person.
Absolutely. Was it C.S. Lewis that said friendship starts when someone says you too?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
isn't that the truth? That is just like you too. And then all of a sudden, people start leaning into you, right?
Right.
That should be your next book, Leaning
Yeah.
Into, because yes, but this one, you can see how I have just devoured it. And like I was telling our team before, as a counselor, I looked at this and I felt like I knew nothing. And I think it's because of the way that you present it and the way you are. So let me ask you this question. Why is it important for us to deal with our past? Why can't we just say, that happened back then, I'm closing the door, I'm not talking about it, because that happens a lot. But why is it important for us to unpack the things of our past?
Yeah, because we want to be intentional about the life we're leading. And so if we want to replicate what we've learned, you don't have to do anything, right? But if you feel stuck or you feel like it's not working, we have to go back, because really our past is kind of the training manual for how to be an adult. And so if there were things taught to us that maybe we don't want to replicate, we need to understand what those were and what to do instead, and really change our relationship with them.
Yes. And God uses everything, doesn't he?
I believe that.
I do.
Yeah.
He can use, well, I know in my life, the things that I ran from, I was most ashamed of, the things that I didn't want anybody to know, are really, that's my ministry now. And it's my way of relating to other people, because what I realized was I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one at all. I go back to when I think about people feeling that way, I think about the scriptures in Genesis, I think it's chapter 2, where God says it's not good for man to be alone. And we think of marriage, but that's truly relational, isn't it?
Definitely.
But we're still dealing with that problem that he proclaimed then, loneliness. You hit a little bit about social media. Is that why we're so lonely, or why are we living behind these almost preconceived, pre-built walls?
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels more comfortable in the moment. You know, it's kind of the prevention of short-term pain.
Yes.
But then long-term, we don't actually have the relationships.
Yes.
And so all of us, I mean, you meet somebody, there's some discomfort in that. It's hard to meet new people. It's hard to have conversations. And so social media says, hey, you don't have to do that. Let us help you not have to do that. And that's a wonderful promise. But I think in the long term, what happens is we don't have deep connection unless we work on that outside of social media.
And that's the one thing we long for most, right? To be known, to be seen for who we are and not who everyone thinks that we are. That gets so overwhelming. And doesn't that lead to the depression and all these anxieties that we are dealing with many times silently?
Yeah, we're just not meant to be alone, right? We're meant to, we can have time to ourselves, and I mean, Jesus did that, and so like that's part of it, but we're not meant to choose to be alone all the time.
Yes.
And it's not our best self that shows up in isolation. You know, if you think about people in prison, it is a punishment to put them in isolation, right?
Yes.
People complain, they say, that's terrible, and yet how often do we elect to do that in our personal lives?
Yes.
We just say, well, I'm gonna be on my own.
Absolutely. How does someone identify, I love this question, if they have some healing to do? How do we identify that? And we started touching on that earlier, because we really do, I think, began to think that's just me. How do we identify? It's like, no, that's not my best self. That's not who I want to be.
Yeah. So a couple of things would be, where are you stuck in your life that you can't figure out how to get past? In that stuck place, that what's underneath that is something you haven't dealt with.
And what do you mean? I mean, how do I know if I'm stuck?
Yeah, so maybe you say, well, I'm dating and I keep dating the same type of person and I don't understand why, and it always ends the same way. Or I keep getting upset with my spouse and we have the same fight over and over again, I don't understand why. Or I go to work and I have this experience, and so it's kind of that repetitive cycle where we can't think our way out of it. And the reason we can't think our way out of it is because it's something that we've learned a long time ago from an experience we had that we're projecting onto today.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, so we start to realize this. What's our next step? What do we do?
Yeah, I think you just tell somebody and you admit that it's not working.
Yes.
Right? So that's one of the biggest steps, is just, are you willing to ask for help and tell somebody it's not working?
Yes. I love that. That takes a lot of nerve.
It does.
I remember the first time I did that, I invited some people into my home, and I remember when they knocked on the door, I remember Jason going to open the door, and I still feel the sweaty palms. I still feel the fear, and I still hear that voice, in and my insides was going, run, don't do this, don't let them know who you really are. And this is what I heard, and I want you to address this. What I heard was, because they will never accept you. You will never be liked. You'll never. So what do we say to ourselves in those situations? Because that's a real thought, a process.
Definitely. And if something's happened to you, that thought is even double, right? I mean, you just feel it so much more.
Yes.
The obvious question is it true? Is that a true statement?
Yes.
And then who are we trying to gain acceptance from?
Yes.
And so even if those people don't, now you and I know they're going to accept you, they'll just even love you more most of the time. But let's say they don't, right? I'm always kind of the guy that goes, well, let's consider both sides. So let's say they don't, but you're still great with God.
Yes.
Is that enough?
See, I love that, because at the end of the day, if you've done what God has asked you to do, that's where the peace is, isn't it?
Yep.
And you really get to the place, the things that I ran from for so long and I was so afraid of, they held power over me. And by speaking it, it lost its power. And speak to that, because that's a big part of just having that peace as a human being.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it just gets bigger. Right? And then the secret that we protect, we have to tell secrets about the secret.
Yeah.
And then we start to have this world that's really just built around not talking about something.
Yeah.
And so if you imagine, if you had a room in your house and you just threw a bunch of stuff in there you didn't know what to do with, eventually that would get full, right? And then you'd have to go to another room. Yeah. And so what happens is if we do that, like that house, our life becomes very small. We end up living in the kitchen, right? And we go, this is the only room where there's not a bunch of stuff I don't know what to do with. Yeah. And so the challenge is, let's open the doors. God knows anyway, and let's talk about it.
I love that. That's why, this was kind of funny, but it's true. I could talk that long about what you're doing. My mom died at the age of 51, Jason, and her last words to me were, don't live like I'm dying. And she had made a mistake as a young woman, and she'd never been able to share it with people. And her inner talk was, don't tell anybody, no one will accept you. And she lived in that prison. And I think that's so sad. And I love how you are always encouraging people that you are enough. In God, you are enough. And talk to us about that, because isn't it true that you are going to be robbed of your very life if you don't find the courage or ask God to give you the courage to step out and say, this is me, and be okay, because it is God that you're trying to please.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the story you shared, it'll cost us everything,
yes.
right? I mean, because we hold on to that. And so if we're holding on to it, we can only do what we know how to do.
Yes.
And so we're limited in that function. And so we just have to acknowledge that that's how it's going to end for us if we don't talk to somebody. I think on the courage piece, though, it's really hard to be courageous, And I think even in my own story, some things have happened to me that I wish didn't, and they're hard to talk about anyway. And so I just go like, oh, do I have to tell somebody that?
Yes.
Right? Or if we've made a mistake, do I have to tell somebody that?
Yes.
But really the better question is, do I want to let that control my life?
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually the question, right? Do I want to let that? And if I do, keep it a secret. Yes. If I don't, I need to tell somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what does that do to ourselves as a person? What does that do to who we think we are? The talk that we say to ourselves is what?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think when we're holding on to that, we have to be two people at once. Right? And so if you think about your authentic self and who you project yourself to be, the greater the distance between those two, the greater the likelihood addiction thrives, stress, poor coping, because it's just so much work.
Because it's going to be manifested in some way, right?
Yeah, it has to be.
We think we're hiding this deep hurt and pain. And to start with, how sad that we're having to carry it. That we've had things that have happened to us, or we've made mistakes. We all make mistakes, but yet we hold it against ourselves more so than we would anyone else, right? And we lose ourselves in all that.
And what's fascinating is when you finally get the courage to tell somebody that actually loves you what's going on, and you say, hey, I have to talk to you, I'm having a problem. They might not know the problem, but what's funny is people who love us well, they already know. Yes. No one's shocked, right? So you go, hey, I've worked up the courage, Kim, I'm going to tell you I'm having a problem. And you go, sort of been waiting for you to say it.
Yes.
Right? I love you. I noticed. What do you need?
Yes.
And so the thing we tell ourselves is that it'll go the opposite, when the truth is deeper relationships are formed when we do that.
Absolutely. Okay, I have a question. So I have someone in my family, or I have a friend, and I see that they're not okay, and I see that they're not talking to me about it. What is an opener that would be comfortable for them to maybe feel comfortable in talking to me? What would be my best approach with them?
Yeah, so sometimes I'll just say to someone, how are you doing? Honest answers only. And I just start there.
Oh.
Honest answers only, right? I actually want the whole answer. So how are you doing? What I've found about people, and you probably learned this too, telling people what to do almost never works.
Right.
Right? So I had a season,
work.
it was not good for business, right? I was just like, you need to change. And they're like, that doesn't help, Jason.
Yeah, it doesn't work so well in marriages
No.
either.
So
Yeah.
what I've learned is you have to earn the right to have an opinion.
Yes.
You have to earn that. And so if you haven't earned that, it's not going to carry any weight.
Yeah.
But if I'm your friend and I legitimately care about you and I build that relationship, suddenly I can speak to your life.
And isn't it the truth that we think that if we share our lives with someone that they're going to go, oh, that's just too much, I can't take it, when in fact they lean in and go, oh my gosh, thank you for trusting me. Isn't that's
It's
the
an honor.
best?
It's an honor to be seen as a person that could be told that sort of thing.
Yes, to
Yeah.
be trustworthy like that. Oh, I love that. Okay, I have another question. I feel like I'm just jumping all around, but I have you here.
I love
and I
it.
have this
You've
list.
got the list.
Please
You're doing
just
great.
stay.
Yeah.
Yes, I've just gotten started. It would take a 4-hour show. But this is something that's very important. We know that the Bible says in the Gospels, mainly Mark, it says that there will come a time when there will be brother against brother and children against parents and vice versa. I'm seeing that all over. Half of the people I talk with, this is becoming an issue, especially with adult children and parents and vice versa for whatever reason. What do we do? What do I tell people? What's a better way? I mean, I know what I'm saying, but I want to know what you would say to that.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing about parents is, and if you're a parent listening to this, we're all doing the best we can with today's standards, right? And the thing about that is, in 20 years, there'll be different standards. Yeah. And so what happens is that the next generation kind of adopts new standards, and then they say, I'm going to pull your experience from the past into the present and judge it by today's standards. And guess what? You didn't do a good job. And so the challenge of that is, number one, we're growing, which is amazing, but number two, we're using that growth to actually ruin relationships. Yes. And so I'm not here to say everything that happened to everybody was perfect, but I'm here to say I think we need to have some grace. Yes. And I think we have to have some understanding that, good that we've learned this, but they didn't know that then.
Yes.
Right? And so they didn't know that. How do we help them learn today? Yes. And if we want to help them learn, we have to acknowledge what we just said. People aren't usually motivated to change if we tell them they did something bad and they failed and then suggest something. We have to just say, I know you did your best, but what if we tried this?
Yes. Yeah. And it's such a hurtful thing to hold grudges and to be, I see it all the time. I see parents just broken, and I see kids broken, and not a lot of grace. And so thank you for that so much. Gosh, I could go on and on. I'm trying to think what is the one I really want to ask you. I want to ask you, what about just in your own life, when you're sitting by yourself and you are feeling so attacked and feeling like you're just not sure, life is just crumbling in on you. We've all been there. What do you say to yourself to push yourself forward, to keep on keeping on? There's so much suicide, there's so much depression. Yeah. How do we, and it's so prevalent in our world today, how do we just kind of scoot ourselves out enough that we can move forward?
Yeah, so I always think about how can I change my state, my physical state, my environmental state, so how can I get out of where I'm feeling stuck? Yes. But really the first easiest thing is, if you're a faith person, put it up in prayer and just tell God the truth, just the raw truth, right? Here's where I'm at, God, here's how I feel, here's where I'm stuck. And then this is the part that I was no good at, that I had to learn, pause and listen. Right? Because sometimes we go, okay, well, I'm going to tell you how it is, God. I'm good at that part, right? But then I'm not going to listen. And what I've learned in my life about getting past my past is that God was always there.
Yes.
It was always there, right? Yes. I just had to tune in. Yes. And so that was something I had to learn to do, not that God had to show up. I just had to learn to tune in.
Yes. Oh, I love that. This book and I know everyone's going to get this book. I've given so many copies of this book out. Get Past Your Past, How Facing Your Broken Places Leads to True Connection. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, I have one final question.
Okay, it's going to be a long question.
It's going to be a long question.
It's going to be a very long question.
We'll be right back.
Kim Crable knows all about hidden shame and regret. In her transparent story, Burdens to Blessings, Kim invites you along the journey from shame and sadness towards healing and hope. Simply go to www.kimcrable.org.
Oh my goodness, welcome back. Can you believe, have you all enjoyed it? I know we're going to be hearing from our people in our audience. What a thrill to have you. What an honor. Friends, he's on Instagram. He does these mini clips of wisdom, and I'm always so thrilled to have each and every one of them because they're real, they're practical. I can apply them to my life. And thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, well, thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thousands of people following you. Get the book. All the questions I asked were from this, and you can see from my little blue stickies, I didn't get far. But I love your heart, and I love your authenticity and your vulnerability, which you can read about in the book and as you follow him on Instagram. Our final question is this. Many times people will say to me, Kim, it might be because I'm approaching 29. I'm a little bit older now than I used to be. And they will say to me, if you could give wisdom, if you could speak to your younger self, what would you say? And in a very short version, I would say, do your best and then trust God with the rest. I was not a very trusting person until God really helped me. May I ask you that same question? If you could give yourself wisdom to the younger you, what would you say?
It's a great question, and as a fellow 29-year-old person, I would love to answer that. I would love to answer that. Here's what I would say to myself, which I think a lot of my clients would resonate with. It's you are worth investing in. Yeah. I think so many times we feel like we're just not worth the effort to improve. And so if you hear that and you say, but Jason, you don't know what I've done, you don't know how I've lived, and I just say, like, maybe you don't believe it yet, but God does. Yeah. And so if we're willing to invest, we actually change generations, we change trauma, we do all those things. So I would just say you are worth investing in.
Oh my gosh, I think I'm going to cry. That is so, because you're right. Each of us, and what you said there, it's like if we find the courage to step up and make the changes, then those who come behind us will see it wasn't easy, but we were working at it, and God was on our side, and he did wonderful things. And with all the hurt that we have, God can heal, and then we become a voice of hope, like you have, to our world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.